Christian
That's right.
McCaffrey, you've been with him for a while. Obviously, I think he's the best NFL running back. I mean, some could argue that. And he's also had longevity in the NFL. And he's also overcome some major injuries. What do you think? What do you help with on the mental side for when he has a major setback, knee injury, or something of that nature? Because let's say it's an ACL, as we know with most athletes, or not most, but let's say a lot of athletes, that can take them away from their career permanently, or they may never come back the same person. Nowadays, it's gotten more and more. Adrian Peterson a number of years ago comes back in 9 months, and that was unheard of. And but there's a lot of uncertainty about, will my knee ever be the same again? And it's a lot of times the mental part of the athlete going, because the doctor could sit there and go, no, the knee's stronger than ever, but the athlete's got to get through the mental hurdle and believe that it's stronger than ever. So how do you help through that?
Yeah, I mean, I think from when you're mentoring or you're alongside somebody who's going through a return to play, you have to be patient with them. They have to have that lock-in mentality. And I mean, I don't think it's any different than a healthy athlete training of a injured athlete that's back. Have to be diligent with the work that takes place. There's just a lot of extra stuff that happens with scarring and, tissue repair and, reintroduction of proprioception and all the things that go along with an athlete that's been injured. If they are committed to what it takes to know what the metrics for bone, muscle, tendon, ligament repair time is, but then there's all the other work that has to be done to reintegrate the nervous system and all the things go into that. So it's tedious, and a lot of athletes aren't willing to do that. So the mental piece comes from, do I want to do all the work to get back to 100% normal? Or am I going to get impatient and retire, or impatient and, underperform? So, the rehabilitation, and, we've been through all of that in, an 8-year NFL career with him and others, that you just have to pin your ears back and do the necessary work to reintegrate all of the systems that go into, getting back on the field or the track or the court healthy again.
Yeah, that's really good. First starts with their commitment. Do they see the end in mind, which is one of Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People? Do they want to get back to that peak performance or optimal performance? And are they willing to do the work to get there, because you're going to help them get there? And that's the same.
Yeah, that's it. That's 100%. I mean, yeah, Anna Hall might be the best example of that I've, and I don't train her anymore. I'm just more of a fan of hers now. I got to coach her in high school, but, she's been through 2 really major injuries that, one you'll hear about a little bit next week in the Olympic Games, where she hurt her knee and had surgery in January. But, I know her well enough to know that her mentality is, failure is not an option. The goal is still the goal. So what do I have to do to make that happen? And then I'm going to take every means necessary to make it happen. Christian's the same way. I've seen several athletes that go through that, and the ones that lock in and are day to day on their therapy, their modalities, their, all the things they're supposed to do, usually land right back where they're supposed to.
Yeah. I'm curious. There's been some buzz, I know. So, I'm a Badger fan. TJ Watt this offseason, it's rumored that he did very little heavy weights and was going far more functional. And I think there's some others that I heard rumored, I didn't confirm, that they were doing some of the same stuff, going away from some of the old Olympic lifts, or perhaps the old James Harrison lift heavy shit and show it on Instagram type stuff. What do you see in changing in the industry? What do you see in stay the same?
Yeah. I think people are starting to realize, right? I mean, like we highly value the weight room. It's a critical component to athletic development, but there are certainly, there's top end numbers that we don't need to chase in the weight room, especially with a well-developed professional athlete. And, I think as coaches evolve and grow and understand, and it's not all about, I mean, it's a pretty easy program to say, hey, let's make your squat 100 pounds heavier. That's a pretty low hanging fruit. Doesn't take a whole lot of, creative programming to make that happen. So it's like, what is going to move the needle? What's going to keep an athlete healthy? What keeps them available, right? Available is much more important than what your squat max is. And so, some of the functional strength stuff, Obviously, I still think at some level you have to push heavy weight. There's hormone response, there's tendon and ligament development, and all the things that go into all that. But knowing as a coach when it's time to say enough's enough, we have plenty of strength levels. So now what do we need to do to ensure proper proprioception? Have we addressed the fascial, the fascia system? Have we addressed, stretch reflex and like all the other things that go in? There's a lot of ways to develop those things that don't have to be traditional powerlifting, Olympic lifting, type of movements. We tend to approach things from a speed, foundation. And so there's lots of things we do in movement that don't even require weights that still, can enhance what they're doing on the field. And it's a lot better on the body. And it really, Vince Anderson had a big impact on me years ago when he said, training should look like competition. And so, when I'm working with an athlete that's maybe a basketball player, do we really need to force the issue on a big, heavy squat? Or should we be doing movements that more mimic what they are, what their load looks like on a basketball court, which would be, high decelerations, high accelerations, force absorption, in landing from all the jumping that they do and things like that. So it's just, it's a maturity in coaching to know what an athlete needs. They need strength levels, they need fast twitch recruitment. They need all the things that fall along the force velocity profile, but knowing when to back off one and enhance the other, I think that's a skill that takes just time, experience, and maybe a better general understanding of, what is the max strength levels that an athlete needs.